You ever have one of those days where you know from the second it starts, something wild's about to go down? Yeah, that was me, sitting at Gate B-22 in Atlanta, headphones on, hoodie up, just trying to keep my nerves in check before my flight to D.C. The thing is, I wasn't some tourist heading out for a summer vacation, I'd just gotten into Georgetown summer law program. 17 years old, Howard sweatshirt, big dreams, and apparently a face that set off alarms for people who couldn't be too careful. So, picture this. I'm buried in my book, jotting notes for my orientation, when this flight attendant, Catherine Wintersmith 50s, icy composure, Trans-American badge, shining starts eyeballing me like I'm plotting to steal the plane. Next thing I know, she's whispering to the gate agent, side-eyeing me so hard I can feel it through the terminal. I try to ignore it, but you know that sense? When you just know you're being watched for the wrong reasons. Not 5 minutes later, the airport cop officer Patterson steps in, hand never straying far from his holster, the crowd gathering behind him like they're waiting for something to go down. Security situation, everyone stay back, he calls out, voice slicing through the airport's white noise. Suddenly, it's like I'm not just a kid waiting for his flight, I am the story. Officer, please, I say, hands up, voice steady even though my heart's hammering. I'm just waiting for my flight. You can check my boarding pass. He cuts me off, all business. I need you to remain silent and keep your hands visible. Behind him, Catherine's nodding like she just caught Bin Laden. He was behaving suspiciously, Officer Patterson. Watching security, taking notes. We really can't be too careful these days. I wish I could say this was new, but it wasn't. For black kids like me, public suspicion is a rite of passage. Honor student at breakfast, potential threat by lunch, yeah. That happens. My mother's on her way. I mutter, mostly to myself. I doubt it matters. Of course she is, Catherine snorts. I'm sure she'll explain everything. None of them knew. Not the crowd, not Patterson, definitely not Catherine. My mom? She's the assistant director of the FBI's Atlanta field office, and she doesn't play. 3 hours before all this, it was just a regular morning. I was stuffing my acceptance letter and boarding pass into a folder, my dad pacing downstairs, Godfather honking outside. Dad hugged me like he was sending me off to war, not college. Be excellent, but be careful, he said. Words I'd heard my whole life, words that meant more than he probably knew. Mom texted, call me when you get to the gate, classic her, juggling the end of federal corruption case, and still checking on me. Airport was chaos, like always. I did my little dance, threw security shoes off, laptop out, trying not to look suspicious. Old habits, right? Found a spot at the gate, grabbed some food, buried myself in Georgetown's reading list. That's when Catherine started her show. See, she'd been flying since the 80s, back when people dressed up for flights and thought Pan Am would last forever. Since 9/11, she saw herself as the last line of defense, see something, say something etched in her brain. Only sometimes something just means being young, black, and focused. She watched me for a while, convinced my phone and my glances around the terminal meant pre-op surveillance. The fact that I was snapping a pic of my acceptance letter for my grandma didn't cross her mind. Perception and reality, they don't always shake hands. Anyway, once she made up her mind, the chain of suspicion started rolling. She flagged the gate agent, spun her story, and before I knew it, Patterson's at my side, asking for ID. I kept it cool, hands visible, slow movements, narrating every action. My ID's in my bag, front pocket. I'm reaching for it now. He checks my documents, listens to my explanation, scrolls through my notes, all reading assignments and project ideas. No security threat, just a nerd on his way to law camp. But Catherine wouldn't let it drop. She presses the issue, louder now, drawing stares and recording phones. I know suspicious behavior, she says. Patterson stands his ground, tells her I'm cleared, but it's too late. The crowd is getting that look like maybe I'm more than I seem, maybe I'm trouble. Reynolds, the airline manager, shows up, gets an earful from Catherine about security and gut instincts. Even after 2 officers and a manager, she's not backing down. The captain arrives, formal and tense. We'd like you to submit to additional screening, he says, just a precaution. I'm tired angry, but I know the playbook: comply or miss the flight, miss orientation, miss everything. May I call my mother? I ask, trying to buy time. Not necessary, Catherine snaps. This needs to be resolved now. I stand my ground. With all due respect, I've complied with everything. This extra screening is about bias, not safety. The word lands hard. The air shifts. The captain's uncomfortable. The manager looks ready to fold, but Catherine doubles down, says she can't work the flight if I board. And that's when the twist hits the kind you don't see coming unless you know my family. Sergeant Collins, the senior cop, steps in. Before any decisions, Assistant Director Washington of the FBI is en route to this gate. She requests nothing happen until she arrives. The ripple through the staff is almost funny. The FBI? Why? Then Mom walks in. She's all business suit and quiet fury, badge in hand, a force you don't want to mess with. She thanks Collins, addresses the staff with that calm, even tone that means she's deadly serious. My son has been cleared. Is there any reason, other than bias, for him to be denied boarding? Dead silence. Catherine tries to protest. I'd have reported anyone. Mom doesn't let up. After a thorough law enforcement review, your concerns are about my son, not safety. The captain, sensing where this is going, finally says, if you're not comfortable in this, Winters, I'll have you replaced. Just like that, the power flips. Catherine's escorted off the flight, eyes flashing with something between humiliation and disbelief. The crowd, who's been watching the whole thing, starts murmuring, some in support, some just hungry for drama. I get an upgrade to first class, but what I really want is a promise. What will you do to make sure this doesn't happen to the next kid? I ask the airline director, who promises reform. The flight finally boards. Mom hugs me, says she's proud, tells me this isn't just about me. As I take my seat, exhausted but vindicated, I realize the whole incident's been filmed. Within hours, clips hit social media, FBI director's son profiled, airline gets put on blast. The story blows up. By the time I land in D.C., my phone's going nuts. Suddenly, I'm at the center of a national conversation I never asked for. The days after are a blur: news, interviews, emails from the airline about new training, apologies, promises. I go to lunch with my dad, try to focus on my program, but there's no escaping it. Even strangers stop me. That video opened my eyes, one woman tells me. I'm not sure what to say, thanks. Sorry? Both? A week later, I run into Catherine again, this time at a listening session in D.C., corporate exec in tow. She apologizes, real or rehearsed, I can't tell. But I tell her, I hope you share this with your crew, so the next kid just gets to fly. That at least feels right. Back at Georgetown, I'm just another student burying myself in case law and campus life. Try to remember that one bad day doesn't define me. But something's changed. Not just for me, but for the airline, for every person who saw those videos and asked themselves, would I have spoken up? Would I have acted differently? So what do you think? Was justice served? Or was this just another day in America where the system only works when the right person's watching? I want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Let's talk about it. Right and wrong, justice and power, where do you stand? And don't forget to share this story, because the only way things change is if we keep the conversation going. Thank you for listening.